drop bombs here. Now let me see you go off like a bomb. But that's alright.
Yo guys, what is up? Moxsy on Borderlands 3 video, and today we're talking about Gamebreaker Amara, what I believe to be the highest damage dealing Amara build possible, and we are going to be going over everything you guys need to know about this build. We're going to be splitting it into two sections where we talk about mobbing and where we talk about bossing and demonstrate how to do both with this. I hope the video is really informative and helpful for you guys. Real quick before we get into it, over 60% of my viewers are not subscribed, and we're getting so close to 120k subs, on the road to 125k, which is a big goal of mine. If you guys are enjoying the content and haven't hit that subscribe button, I really do appreciate you hitting it. And with that, guys, let's get right into the video. Alright guys, so showing on the screen right now is the updated skill tree for Gamebreaker Amara. Now, with the new level cap and the increase in skill points, we were able to fuse both Gamebreaker and Earthbreaker Amara, both being face puncher melee builds that either use the Phaserker or the driver. Now, we're going to be using the driver for bossing, and I'll have a little bossing section where I talk about how I do bossing with this build, because I think it's one of the biggest things that people struggle with on Amara is, hey, I can do damage when there's a bunch of enemies and they're grouped up, but I can use ties, but I can't kill any bosses when they're alone, which I'll be explaining in our bossing section, and then we'll also have a mobbing section where we'll talk about the Phaserker and ties and how that works. But real quick, before we get into both of those things, I want to bring up the nerf or patch to ties that bind. Now, this nerf stated that they were going to stop any damage that wasn't gun or melee passing through ties that bind. Now, as of the date of making this video, this patch didn't work. Everything in their mother goes through through the damage of ties that bind, whether it be action skill damage, whether it be grenade damage. It works just the same as it did before, and this build got new skill points, and now it's even stronger. It felt like that was a direct nerf for this build. It didn't happen, so Gamebreaker is here to stay. Now, let's talk about bossing. Now, bossing on this build requires a 390 face puncher, a shield, and a grenade with an anointment. I have what I would consider to be some of the best things that you could have, but I'll show you guys in a second. We'll go shoot Graveward. I'll take off this level 1 Broadward. We'll still one-shot him. This build does so much damage that there's a lot of things that you don't actually need, but if you guys want to get the absolute max damage, there are some things that I'll recommend. Now, the main things that you need is a 390 face puncher, a spiritual driver, and a elemental projector white elephant. Now, the reason for these things and how bossing works and how we do so much damage is an interaction between self-damage and Groundbreaker. Now, when we self-dot, we are going to proc, or whenever we use our action skill in the driver, we're going to proc a dot on ourselves. That dot is going to inflict damage. That damage is going to increase by holding a 390 anoint, and then when we actually shoot that damage out, we're going to proc Groundbreaker with 390 anoint, which is going to basically juice up our white elephants when they hit. Now we're using the elemental projector to boost the elemental damage that we're doing, and we're using the driver for this self dot to give us Groundbreaker, and it's also going to increase our damage while we're moving. That's why in all of these clips I am moving. I'm running when I'm shooting, and I'm running when the white elephants are going off. That'll maximize the damage that we're getting. Now, this works on any single boss in the game. You can one-shot them. Now, when an enemy doesn't get one-shot because they have an immunity phase, which is pretty much the only thing that will cause this build to not one-shot things, such as Psycho Reaver, I'll switch to a face puncher that has melee damage on it, because once our 390 anoint is done, once they're below 90% health, we lose a ton of damage because this 390 anoint boosts literally everything that we're doing. Now, You don't need god rolls for this stuff. I have god rolls just showcase it, but let's go one shot Grave Ward, and I'll take off this Brawler Ward. I am keeping on this Fish Slap because if I don't have something here with an ASE annoyance, I don't get 25 stacks of mindfulness, which are super, super important. Now, for here, I'm going to be using Phase Cast and Soul Sap. The reason I'm using Soul Sap and not Revelation, which is what we use for mobbing, is because I don't want to hit the boss too hard with my action skill that the boss will drop below 90% health, and then my anoint will be useless before I even use it. So we're using Soul Sap. The reason I'm going to use Phase Cast here is because I want to apply Laid Bare. Now, I'm going to be double casting Phase Cast, because when I double cast Phase Cast, I'm going to get 2 stacks of Transcend, which is plus 54% critical hit damage, which is a crap ton of critical hit damage on a character that doesn't need critical hit damage. We're also going to proc Laid Bare for a multiplicative damage 25% increase. So let's go over. We have no Brawler's Ward. So for this boss fight, I'm going to cast once, and then I'm going to try to cast, run back, and then run forward to keep up my movement. And let's do it. And I wanted to do this. I don't typically do this in build videos, but I wanted you guys to understand my thought process of what I'm doing and why it works. So there, these are my modifiers. Nothing, anything too crazy. And we're not wearing that Brawler's Ward. Now, obviously, if I'm wearing a Brawler's Ward with plus 300 melee damage and bonus radiation, it's just going to add that much more damage. But as I said, there are some things that you guys just don't need, but you can get and have even more damage. But this interaction does so much freaking damage that it really is just a few things that you absolutely need, and then some other things to add on extra damage. So that's pretty much going to be our bossing section. Move with the driver, proc Transcend, and then shoot this. Make sure that you're not using things like Revelation, because Revelation could cause the boss to take more damage and you'll lose your 390 anoint, and you will one-shot pretty much everything in the game that you come across. It's freaking ridiculous. Now, if you do want to use a stinger for bossing, bosses that you can get up close with, such as Lilith, or for example Aista, that Aista Phase Slam kill that I got, I was wearing this Corrosive Stinger, and all I did was Phase Slam him. That Phase Slam triggered the Groundbreaker of Self-Dot that I built up and procced White Elephants, and I just one-shot Aista, just like that. It's pretty crazy. Alright, let's talk. We're going to transition to our mobbing section with this build. Alright, so for mobbing, we get into Ties That Bind and how much damage that can do. Now, I have a full video explaining the math behind Ties That Bind and Revelation, and if you guys want to check out that video and see the explanation for how this does over damage cap with just using Ties That Bind, that video will be up there. But today I'm just going to talk about it briefly and showcase that it still works and what I use for mobbing. Now, Revelation is Nova that triggers when we grasp with our setup with 390 and all of our damage through action skill damage. The calculated damage before level 65 was 1.4 billion. I haven't recalculated it, but it's over 1.4 billion now. So an absolute crap ton of damage that we do when we grasp something with Ties That Bind. Now, we're going to be using a Phase Zerker. Sorry, I forgot to switch. But using a Phase Zerker for mobbing, because Phase Zerker allows us, when we Fake Grasp, to build up stacks of Do Harm. Those stacks of Do Harm will give our Ties That Bind more damage. Now, when we grasp something with Ties That Bind, it is going to proc Revelation, triggering over damage cap on our little friends over here. And I'm just using Skags. I know they're weak enemies. I'm just using them because they don't shoot at me and I can explain it easily. But obviously this build works against all enemies. But with the Phase Zerker, we're going to grasp. Revelation's going to hit for over damage cap. Now, the reason that is so cool is, one, you murder entire groups of enemies but just by grasping them. But two, all that overkill damage is then transferred into our Face Puncher. Our Face Puncher, when we shoot, the next shot afterwards will have over 1 billion damage, or around 1 billion damage attached to it. So, and we have really good cooldown. So when we use the Face Puncher, we get 1,000,000,000 damage on Groundbreaker. We shoot that 1,000,000,000 damage. That triggers Overkill. And then we could Grasp again, kill everything, and then shoot again, and we get another 1,000,000,000 damage. And it just kind of goes into a chain. Now, things you don't need are a Stinger Shield. You don't need this, but it just adds to the absurdity because your Stinger Shield is going to be going off when you grasp things, and it just does so much freaking damage. Once again, shield not needed. You could still use the Brawler Ward here. Brawler Ward works really, really well. The reason for the on-action skill End Anoint on the Brawler's Ward is because that is going to add plus 50% damage to your Groundbreaker proc. So even more damage with the Brawler Ward. Like, if you want to do the most damage while using this, use the Brawler Ward. But the Stinger is just kind of like easy, convenient damage on top of everything else. So I do like that. Instead of an Elemental Projector White Elephant for mobbing, I will either use a Stone White Elephant, such as like this thing, a Firestone White Elephant, or a Static Charge. You don't need the Static Charge, but if you want to get even better mobbing, it'll turn your Face Puncher into a Brainstorm, which is really, really cool. But just to showcase this off and how this works, so we have full stacks of Do Harm. I'm gonna go up to one of our friends here, and this is an interaction. I'm making sure to hold the 390 Face Puncher. That'll just increase all of our damage even more. Let's see if we can get a few friends here to spawn. So, as you can see, so our buddy here, the guy that's next to the enemy that you grasp takes over 1,000,000,000 damage. The actual enemy that you grasp won't take 1,000,000,000 damage, but they'll still die because they're gonna get transferred the damage from the people that got the 1,000,000,000 damage. Now, these enemies have a few million health. They just got hit for way over 1,000,000,000, probably close to 2,000,000,000. And then those Remnant Orbs are gonna get action skill scaling, mayhem scaling, splash damage scaling, you name it. And these are the things that'll hit for like literally trillions of damage. It's pretty freaking ridiculous. And now that I did that, I have all that overkill. When I shoot things with my Face Puncher, already because of the 390, they have a crap ton of damage. But Groundbreaker on top of that will just absolutely melt things, and it works really, really well. And there you guys kind of have it for mobbing Phase Zerker with Revelation to nuke everything, and then for bossing, you're going to use the driver. Pretty much the same setup. The only thing that we change is your artifact to, because we're not dotting ourselves, we don't need Elemental Projector, but for bossing, Elemental Projector. And Stinger, we could trade for the Brawler's Ward for bossing. Now, for modifiers, you can use whatever you want. I like Speed Demon, Healy Avenger, Chain Gang, and I'm either using Roguelite, Postmortem, or minus 75% crit. Once again, we already do so much damage that minus 75% crit is not really bothersome, but at the same time, if you want to do the most, you wouldn't be using that. So that is it for the skill tree and the guns. I am going to briefly touch on the skill tree real quick. I already explained a little bit of it, but real quick, the new points that we're putting into are mindfulness. We needed mindfulness because it's going to scale our damage while we're moving for bossing. Helping Hands is where I put 3 points here and the other 2 points into Helping Hands. You could put these points into Alacrity. It's going to be really great for your reload speed. However, the only thing that this build is kind of lacking is some damage reduction and some tankiness, and Helping Hands on top of that is just going to make us even more unkillable, which is great. In Blue Tree here, as many points into Do Harm as we can. Transcend is going to increase our crit damage. We can't crit with the Face Puncher, but the White Elephants can, and when those White Elephants crit, they hit for a ridiculous amount of damage. Restless, we're relying on our action skill, so as many points into cooldown as we can. Fast Hands for the weapon swap, reload speed. I do swap Face Punchers sometimes when things are below 390 if they live through that, so we can switch real quick. Laid Bare for that damage increase, Remnant for trillions of damage, Avatar to double proc Transcend and more damage with the Phase Zerker, Awakening for that rush stack effectiveness. I use Infusion and Illuminated Fist. Illuminated Fist doesn't convert all of the damage that the Face Puncher does into elemental damage. So Infusion is going to cover the other damage that isn't converted, at least not all of it, but more of it. Steady Hands for more accuracy. Tempest for more damage. We're using Dread. Dread is going to give us more gun damage. We don't care about that. What we do care about is getting that reload. Dread is a free reload for us, because whenever you grasp, everything's going to die. It'll instantly reload your gun, even if you didn't even shoot at them. So Dread is basically a reload, which is why I didn't think we needed that many points into reload. And lastly, Sustainment to keep us alive. Guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit longer one. I hope you guys appreciated the breakdown of both the boxing and the mobbing and just how well this build works. If you guys enjoyed the video, I really do appreciate the like the video, comment, and subscribe. We're getting so close to 120k subscribers. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.